Good morning, everyone. I'm Daniel Gama, and I'm here with my favorite co-host, Gabriel Moyano. Hey, what's up? And this is Blue Cow for Happy Fellas. Okay, so in today's episode, I'm here with Arthur, a criminal journalist, and Expedito, a judge that already has had an experience as a juror before. So, first, I would like to thank you guys to accept our invite to our podcast. Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I hope you feel welcome to here today. And also, I'd like to thank my sponsor of today, Blue Cow. Okay. So, okay, let's get down to it. So, Arthur, you gave me asked a few questions here. So, Arthur, when you think about justice, like the word justice, what came through your mind? This is for me it's a good bit. Like when I see an officer or Robert invested is punishing a thief, that probably I think this thief is get what he gave to people. Yes. Yes, like that's what needs to. Yeah, exactly. So, with your point of view, do you think that in the play Traveling Man was justice served the same way that you saw it to be? Not exactly, but in Traveling Man can be the murder, but there is no proof concrete to save the young man. That's how. Yes, Josh. I like to ask you an opinion or focus on the book. That's what do you think about the verdict of the case? You think the boy was really guilty or not guilty? I think he's not guilty. Really? Uh, yeah, the woman had to use the his first answer to see it, but yes. He's out and he's trying. Yeah, he's trying. Yeah, he's complicated to the situation. Yeah, sure. So right now we'll take a short break. No, I would like to ask another question to Atu. I like to ask about the health that's about vengeance. I know the case don't say about vengeance, but I would like to ask about it. That's the I think, in my opinion, there's a little difference between justice and vengeance, right? And I think this little difference is undistinguished to most of people. So I would like to ask you in this case, Traveling Man, was more about justice or vengeance? Vengeance is a great point of the novel. We see the participation of Jordan Seven. Yeah. Once the boy is paid for the crime, he may or may not complete the justice is the main point of the novel. Yeah, precisely because there is a conflict between the justice and the vengeance. Yeah, I think in thanks to Reyes, yeah, Reyes, I think he was the main character of the book, and I think I think he really tried to serve the justice and make justice in this case in the book. And I think, well, Churchill was a very biased, very lot biased, and just Jordan as well because yeah, it's racist. So I think that's kind of a bias. Yeah, what you think? Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah. Okay, so now we'll take a short break of 30 seconds, drink some water, relax, and we'll be right back.
Okay, hello again. We're back with our podcast for Happy Fellas, where we'll talk about the book 12 Angry Men.
And don't forget, this podcast is sponsored by Blue Cow. Very good. Awesome. So now let's get down to our topics again. And with Expedito.
Oh yeah, finally. I was eager to see what you guys had to talk about.
Oh, so Expedito, I know you're a judge that already has experience of a juror. So I like to get advantage of this knowledge, the experience that I already have. And I would like to ask about the doubts and the certain about this case. And I would like to ask you about how the doubts and the uncertainties surround this case, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You know, uh, the book tries to illustrate it and it does a really good job. And yeah, we'll be fun.
Okay, so yeah, so that's my point. So, so do you think like it was the right thing to do? Like, I mean, with all your experience, like being prior judge and viewer, do you think like there could have been another outcome?
So yeah, in the book, they handle the uncertainty behind the case, I think, really well, especially jury eight, because he like in that case, it was like kind of obvious in a way that he was guilty, but jury was able to bring these uncertainties around the case.
Yeah, the reasonable doubt.
And yeah, the reasonable doubts, and they were able, and he was able to like convince everybody in the courtroom. Which I mean, uh, I have had cases where I was a juror, and the whole courtroom was exactly like that in the book, and even knowing that it was like I was I needed to impose myself more. It's just really a difficult thing to do,
Yeah.
because people are not easily persuaded, to change their view. And I think that the book illustrates that, like how it should be in a perfect world. It's a little bit different in reality.
There's a quote about Joe 9 that he say like it's difficult to stand alone against the needs of others. So
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking.
yeah,
And yeah, that happens a lot, and the uncertainties handled pretty well in the book.
So yeah, I would like to add to that. I feel that like as you said, the environment. I mean, it's not easy to stand alone when there's a whole court of jurors that don't stand with you. But I mean, at least nowadays we are getting to a place that we're having not as much bias. But I mean, still, of course, there are some cases.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of like inevitable that we will never actually get to like in 100% perfect world. There is no bias in anybody.
yeah, very
Still,
common.
everybody has some level of bias. I mean, even I probably have some bias that I need to work on. But it's something normal that I try to work against. I try to be as fair as possible whenever I'm jury room. And yeah, it's a really difficult thing to talk about because it's something like intangible to our reality.
Yes, and this book it passed in the 60s, right? 50s. And you think this type of situation that happens in the case would probably happen nowadays in the modern days?
Yeah, even with decrease in like racial behavior, especially in that that times, racism was very much present in the society.
Yes.
And but I still, yeah, yeah. Also, the woman point is very good. We had no woman to represent in the jury room. That was also a factor. But I think still, today, the problem of like slums and people who are, how can I say, disadvantaged in life, in a way, they still handle a lot of uh, prejudice nowadays. And I think probably would still be something that can help, that can happen today, and it does happen a lot. You know?
Yeah, I think like, of course, there will still be bias, but I guess when you get like opinions and yeah, bias, but like from various point of views or perspectives, you can at least with those perspectives come with a consensus, get a outcome when you see all the perspectives, not only one biased perspective.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. I think, yeah.
That's what we should strive to achieve in the courtroom every time. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And yeah, that's part of life. Many times I have seen uh, people go to jail because of their race or gender. And I mean, they weren't guilty, but yeah, it's life. It's not that easy to do.
Yeah, I think that with this book, you can see how the doubts really matters because when you're certain of something, you are like blind by it and can't see really the truth. So I think I want to know your opinion about it, about how doubts important in our world.
Yeah, yeah. You talk about like how certainty might blind us. That is really true, and it is illustrated also in the book with Juror Three. Juror Three is certain in his mind that the whole time the boy is guilty. He doesn't change that view, and because of that, he's blinded to the evidence and that is contrary to it. That happens a lot in our society. I have been in many juries that happens, and uh, being able to not let that certainty blind you and be able to look at the evidence, the doubts in the, like the fact that he had a knife, but there was another knife that was very similar to it. You could just buy it down the street. Also the lady of the train that you talked about before. So that all is very important, you know, and yeah, yeah, very important.
I think like George was trying did the opposite way of thinking because normally you get some evidence and try to explain something with the evidence. But he tried to explain that the boy was guilty by the evidence. You know what I mean? So he already had the verdict, and he just used the evidence to justify it.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
That's a really good insight, actually.
So I think this concludes our time. It was a pleasure to have you here, guys. And
No, the pleasure is all ours. Really good.
yeah, and I think that's all for today. Thank you for and thank you also for sharing your opinion. Thank you for Vegito. And we are live all Wednesday here on for Happy Fellows. And see you next one.
And we would also like to thank our sponsor, Local, for giving this show our support through all these months since we started.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would like to thank your presence on the live, presence of our specialists. Yeah, that's it.
Really good.
Hey everyone, this is your host André,
And it's Sophia.
and welcome to Book and Chat, the podcast where we discuss about books.
In today's episode, we'll be talking about morality and ethics in 12 Agreement, but with a special guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, Edward Rose. Could you introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Edward Rose. I'm a lawyer from Harvard University, and thanks for inviting me.
Edward, could you tell us about a time when you had to make a difficult ethical decision as a lawyer?
Of course, of course. There was a case where I had to defend my client who was accused of negligence. The evidence against him was strong, but I believed in his innocence.
But how could you defend someone who you was guilty?
I didn't know if he was guilty or not. Like, it was just my thoughts.
But what about the victim? Don't you have a responsibility to them as well?
Of course. So my job is to defend my client, not the victim.
So what would you say to those who argue that lawyers are just paid to lie and manipulate the system?
No. That's a broad oversimplification of what we do. Like, our job is to make sure everyone gets a fair trial, okay? Not manipulate the system, okay? Without lawyers, the justice system will be a mess.
But what about those who can't afford the lawyers? Isn't the system rigged against them?
That's true that the system can be unfair to those who can afford the representations. But that is not fault of the lawyers. The systematic issue that need to be prospered.
I just don't believe how you can defend someone when you know is guilty. It does against every credibility.
No. You don't know how. You don't know if someone is guilty or not until they have been heard. And if they're guilty, they still have rights to and need to be protected.
I don't know how you sleep at night defending people like that.
I sleep just fine, okay? Knowing that I'm doing my job to the best of my abilities.
Your job is immoral and unethical.
That's just your opinion.
It's not just my opinion, it's fact. You defend criminals and put innocent people in jail.
Okay.
How can you live with yourself?
No. I live with myself just fine. Thank you, okay? And if you think my job is so immoral and unethical, maybe you should find a different.
Okay. That's enough. Let's move to the commercials. Are you a reading lover? Then Kindle is your best friend. With it, you can have thousands of books in the palm of your hand. And the good news is that now you can get yours at a super discount using promo code BookandChat123. With the code, you get 10% discount on your purchase. Don't waste any more time. Get your Kindle now and embark on a limitless literary journey.
Okay, so now let's talk about prejudice and sympathy, which are two different mindsets that can affect how someone analyzes the right.
Could you give us an example of how prejudice and sympathy could influence the way an individual analyzes a tragedy network?
Of course, it's a lot of cases where prejudice or sympathy affects the way a judgment is analyzed. Okay? For example, one time I had a client who, like he was a black young man, that was accused for a violent crime. During the judgments, it was clear that the accusations didn't have enough evidence to convict him, but some of the jurors were clearly influenced by racial stereotypes.
But I see there's a very similar situation to the one that happens in 2000.
Yeah, the jurors of people were also very influenced by prejudice, and the boy who was being accused was almost sentenced to death, even without proofs.
There were also a lot of irrational and racial arguments in 12 agreement, like the fact that the prosecutor presents weak circumstantial evidence in addition to contradictions in the testimony of witnesses.
But about the rational argument, some jurors also argue that if a young person's life was at stake, it was best to be cautious about it.
On the other hand, lots of rational arguments were shown, like prejudice based on race and social class and even ethnicity.
Strong government shows a lot of how beliefs, values, and prejudice can influence our thinking and actions. It's very important
to analyze carefully a trial case.
And Edward, I'm curious. What are your thoughts on the role of emotions in the courtroom?
Well, emotions are natural parts of any trial, both the prosecution and defense attorneys wants to win, and they will use whatever they can to persuade it the jury. However, I believe it's important to keep the emotions in check and read on the facts of the case. As a lawyer, as a lawyer, it's our duty to represent our clients to the best of our abilities. But we must also remain objective and not let our emotions cloud our judgment.
But what about the emotional impact on the jurors? Don't you think that their emotions can influence the outcome of the trial?
Of course, emotions can play a role in the jury decision-making process. That's why it's important for a lawyer to present facts in a clear and consistent manner and not manipulate the jury's emotion.
That's an interesting perspective, Edward. But what about situations where the facts aren't enough to persuade the jury? Do you think it's ever appropriate to appeal to their emotions?
I think there is a fine line between appealing to the jury's emotion and manipulating them. It's important to present a compelling argument, but it's equally important to do so in an ethical manner. No, we must always remember that we are dealing with people lives and emotions, and we have a responsibility to act with integrity.
But don't you think that in some cases emotions can be driving force behind just decision?
Emotions can be certainly be effectual, but I believe that the law should be based on logic and reason, not on emotion and alone. Okay, we need to find a balance between the two. In both.
Yeah. Well, it seems like we have a difference of opinion here. Let's take a really quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about our last topic. Welcome back to our podcast. Now we're discussing the influence of the lack of gender diversity and the on the jury in solving men. Sophia, can you start by giving us your opinion?
Certainly, I believe the lack of gender diversity of the jury is a serious problem. When you have only men deciding the fate of a defendant, it can lead to gender bias and an unfair trial.
With all due respect, Sophia, I disagree with you. I believe that each juror should be selected based on their ability to judge the facts in particular, regardless of their gender.
But Edward, there's no denying that gender can influence people's rejection of case. In solving men, like we have discussed before, we see this clearly with jury 10, who's prejudiced against the defendant just because of his race.
And we cannot ignore the fact that men have more privileges and opportunities in society, which can affect their ability to understand the perspective of a marginalized
Okay.
person.
I understand what you're saying, but I still think it's possible to have a fair trial with an all-men jury. Okay? After all, they're rational human beings and capable of judging facts based on evidence.
Yeah, of course, but we must remember that nobody is totally impartial. We all have our biases and beliefs, and it's important to recognize that so we can make fair decisions.
Exactly, and that's why diversity is so important. The more different perspectives we have in a jury, the better chance to have a satisfying and competitive result.
I see your point, Sophia, but still I believe we should focus on each individual ability to judge facts fairly and
Yeah, well, this is an important discussion, and there will never be a right or a wrong answer. But I think we can all agree that diversity is important in all areas of life, including the court system, right?
Definitely, and we must continue to question and change and challenge existing norms in order to progress as a society.
I agree with you. Diversity is important, but diversity is also okay in a fair trial.
And with that, we end our discussion about the lack of gender diversity in the jury in Calvin Command. And the end of the podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you.